Hello friends, looking at current affairs for 8th July. The news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 13. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Modi targets Pakistan at G20. So we had discussed about G20, the G20 summit which is going on in Hamburg in Germany. So here Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke targeting Pakistan about the terrorist groups which are based in Pakistan like LET, Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed (JEM). So these two groups he has compared with other international terrorist groups like Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, even the Haqqani network which is targeting Afghanistan. So he says that all these groups are the same. They may be having different names, but the ideology is the same. They spread terror. So he has spoken of action, concerted action by all nations involved against all these terrorist groups. So this is what he's proposing. He's actually proposed an initiative to the way we have a financial action task force. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken of an explosives action task force. So he says this should be constituted. What is FATF? We should understand first so that you will understand this explosives action task force proposed better. So we'll see what is that. So here you can see the details also given that he presented in 11-point action agenda too about the suggestions like exchange of list of terrorists should take place among the G20 nations. There should be easy and expedition of legal process for extradition of criminals, choking funds and weapon supply to these terrorists as such is what is being proposed by Prime Minister here. So what is this FATF and how it helps in eliminating this funding for terrorists? We'll see. Actually, it's against all forms of economic offenses. So Financial Action Task Force is an intergovernmental body created in 1989 by G7, the group of 7 developed nations here, excluding Russia. So this G7 had developed this. Actually, Russia had joined in later. After the disintegration of Soviet Union, it was that Russia joined in. Anyway, now it is out of G8 again. It's again G7. That's another matter. So here FATF, which was formed in 1989, it has set standards that how the policies should be to combat two important aspects. One is money laundering and second is terrorist financing. So how these economic offenses should be tackled is the recommendations which it puts forth from time to time, which are revised as well. So this is the function of this Financial Action Task Force. So it's an international organization at the international level. It's an intergovernmental body. So here FATF, the details again you can see, it's a global agency. So it prescribes standards for countries that how they should develop policies so that terror financings can be combated with. So for that what is required is minimum and stringent KYC norms, know your customer norms. So these standards have to be implemented throughout the world, and India's model was also proposed to be studied as such for this because we have achieved minimal KYC, which is without compromising security situation. So this is what FATF also proposes to have so that the terror financing can be stopped. Because how do terrorists flourish? Because they get funds. So on this lines, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has proposed here at G20 is an EATF. So how there is a Financial Action Task Force, there should be an Explosives Action Task Force. This should be constituted so that sources of deadly arms reaching the terrorists can be handled. So this is targeting financing, funding. This is targeting what is Prime Minister is proposing is targeting arms, that Explosives Action Task Force. So this was a proposal put forth. Apart from, of course, what we discussed in the 11-point action agenda about extradition related and lists of terrorist exchange, those are the suggestions also put. Then the next news item is after Bihar raids, BJP awaits big crack in Grand Alliance. So this is regarding the recent CBI raids which have been conducted in 12 locations across the country, and this is in connection to a case which has been registered against Lalu Prasad Yadav. So these are cases against him, his wife and his sons also, and these are cases related to the time when Lalu Prasad Yadav was the railway minister. That is 2004 to 2009. That was his tenure. So during that time, these tenders which were awarded for development, maintenance and operation of hotels. So in this awarding of tenders to a private company, there were irregularities involved, and that has been investigated into by CBI now. So this is a case. Of course, the political angle which is there to it is that Lalu Prasad Yadav is the is in alliance with JDU. So Lalu Prasad's party is RJD, Rashtriya Janata Dal, and Janata Dal United, JDU of Nitish Kumar, have aligned together to form the government in Bihar, along with Congress as well. So these three parties have come together and have achieved power in Bihar in 2015 assembly elections. So that is the context. And now Nitish Kumar, actually, who is the chief minister of Bihar presently, he had initiated his entire campaigning targeting Lalu Prasad Yadav and the corruption he has been involved in. And now he has formed a Mahagathbandhan, as it is called, a grand alliance, as it is called, with these two political parties. And he has the sons of Lalu Prasad Yadav in his ministry. So there are ministers in his own government now as such, and they are being booked by CBI. So this is the dilemma which Nitish Kumar is in, and it's seen that this is an exit route which he's looking for, to exit from this Gathbandhan and build up his future political roadmap as such, because he's targeting, it said he's targeting to achieve power at the center as well. So these are the political angles behind it too. And even Bihar BJP leader had spoken in a press conference 2 days ago about the corruption charges which Lalu Prasad Yadav's sons are involved in. He had raised these charges, and now CBI has conducted raid against them. So this is them. Then the next news item is Aadhaar not totalitarian center. So this is actually the case which is going on in the Supreme Court on Aadhaar. So whether Aadhaar can be made mandatory for welfare schemes or not. Till now, the Supreme Court stand is that Aadhaar cannot be made mandatory. Nobody can be denied welfare provisions under welfare schemes just because he's not having an Aadhaar number. And that an Aadhaar is breaching privacy. That is the claim being made by petitioners, and a case being heard in the Supreme Court, because once everything is linked to Aadhaar, the government has the leeway. They can access information about anybody's bank account through this one Aadhaar number. And how much secure is this? Whether the government will have all these details is one aspect which is making the petitioners call it a totalitarian state, a state which has complete control over its the people under him. So this is one aspect, a big brother state as such, so state which is watching you all the time. So this was also a state which was conceptualized and in a fiction novel which was by George Orwell. So this is being put forth as what is going on in India too with Aadhaar. This would be what we would come forward with. So of course the Attorney General is denying such allegations that we are not going to become a totalitarian state. And also another point which is there is that how secure Aadhaar is with the government. One is that government can use it any way it wants, and another thing is that if this entire detail which will be available on computers, all this falls in the wrong hands through hacking or through any other means, then how would it affect the citizens? So these are the concerns which are being raised by the petitioners here, and the Supreme Court is hearing this case, and it has also presently said that the constitutionality of this Aadhaar scheme has to be decided once and for all, and probably by a 9-judge bench, because an earlier bench had also given its ruling on right to privacy. So that's why a larger bench is required to look into the matter further. Probably it was an 8-judge bench which we have discussed earlier. So now a 9-judge bench is required if any ruling has to come forth which is going to be superseding that ruling as well. So this is what the Supreme Court has presently stated. Then the next news item is Supreme Court stays High Court verdict on Ganga's status. So this is the legal person status which was given by Uttarakhand High Court to reverse Ganga and Yamuna in March 2017. This has been stayed, frozen by the Supreme Court. So presently a stay has been put, a hold has been put on this status, legal person status. Now why has the Supreme Court done this? For that, to understand that, first of all we have to understand what did it mean. Why did this Uttarakhand High Court government give this legal person status, and what did it actually mean? So this actually had its precedent. The first river in the world to get a legal person status as such was on March 15, 2017, when New Zealand granted this legal status to its Wanganui River. So this Wanganui River, which was granted the legal person status, post that we saw in India also this status was provided to Ganga and Yamuna. So means the river is recognized as a living entity, means it is alive, means it's someone which is getting polluted. So somebody is committing atrocities against the river, is polluting the river. So that according to that, there should be punishment to that person who is polluting, equal to the punishment for harming a human being. So that was the purpose of providing this legal person status. Even the Uttarakhand High Court had called for a Ganga Administration Board to be formed for upkeep and maintenance of the river. So this was the status as such. Earlier to in India, there is a precedent, not a river, but in Allahabad High Court, this case on Ayodhya, Ram Lalla was given a juristic person status. So if you look at the Ayodhya case, which we have also discussed in detail, I will give a link to that too at the end of this video. So in that case, Ram Lalla was one of the three parties. So Allahabad High Court also gave this legal rights and juristic person to Ram Lalla, which is an idol, which is as such. So this is a precedent in India as well of this legal person status being given. And why Supreme Court has put a stay on this legal person status presently, we'll see that too. So because what happens is, if these two rivers are given human being status, so as Uttarakhand High Court had appointed parents for it too. So the parents for this, the Ganga and Yamuna river were here, you can see. So the director of Namami Gange project, then chief secretary and the advocate general of Uttarakhand High Court. So these were the legal parents of the holy rivers. So they would act as the human face to protect, conserve and preserve the river and their tributaries, both Ganga and Yamuna. So the director Namami Gange project has to clean and rejuvenate the river, and these two were the legal persons, parents as such. So now what happens is, Uttarakhand government's this order, Uttarakhand government has moved to Supreme Court challenging this Uttarakhand High Court's order, because it is saying that if Ganga and Yamuna and its tributaries are living human entities, then if there are atrocities committed on them, of course punishment would be there, except for example on the polluters. But in case of human casualties like flood, when people are affected because of the rivers, then can the people also file a petition against the river? And these parents will be liable for responsibility for these rivers as such, for the floods which have occurred because of these rivers. These are the questions being raised by the Uttarakhand government in the Supreme Court. So that is why Supreme Court has presently frozen this legal status, and the hearing will take place. So then the next news item is, a hardy millet yields its genetic code. So entire genetic code of finger millet or ragi has been sequenced by Karnataka's agricultural scientists, and this is the first time in the world that ragi has been, his genetic code has been sequenced. So this genetic sequencing will give you the complete details of the exact genes which are responsible for making ragi drought resistant and nutrition rich. So this is the achievement which has taken place. So ragi as such was first domesticated from a wild species in western Uganda, from Africa, Uganda and even Ethiopian highlands. From there they have been introduced in India around 3000 BC. Since then they have been cultivated in the country, and they are mainly crop for dryland farmers because they do not require a lot of water. So that's what it is, drought resistant. So this is one aspect. And also ragi, it occupies 12% of global millet cultivation. And Karnataka has the second largest drought prone cropland after Rajasthan. And Karnataka, in terms of land area, Karnataka is second, but in terms of cultivation, it is the first of ragi. So here we are seeing that Karnataka agricultural scientists have made this achievement. Plus, another important aspect of ragi, apart from being drought resistant, is that it is nutrition rich. So its nutrition richness comes from it having low glycemic index. So what is this glycemic index and why low glycemic index is better? We'll see that too. So ragi is no longer the poor man's staple food, but it's also preferred by diabetics. So this is another aspect of ragi. So what has happened is, after this gene sequencing, there can be further development, because once you know the specific genes which are responsible for specific traits of ragi, then you can further use those genes. And also, you know, genetic modification can take place, and we can have rice and wheat which can be developed, which are drought tolerant. So transferring of these genes into these rice and other wheat, other crops as such, will give them this potential gains of ragi also. So these were the researches required then. That is the point. So here you can see what was glycemic index. We'll see that too. So the technology, as the scientists say, it can be imported to rice and wheat. So this gene sequencing, first time in the world, has been done by Indian scientists here. So high nutrition quality, one aspect, and it is drought resistant, second aspect. Drought resistance is the second aspect, and this information will reduce the time required for developing improved crops of ragi. So even ragi crop as such can also be improved further. And this is regarding the glycemic index. So it specifically means a measure of how fast carbohydrate foods enter the bloodstream after eating. So once you eat, if carbohydrate foods enter into the bloodstream very fast, then the glycemic index is very high. Low glycemic index is better. So these are the commodities also, edibles which are shown here with the glycemic index as such. So this you can see. So this high glycemic foods have to be avoided because then they enter. So in diabetics also, the carbohydrates means blood sugar level increases drastically after consumption of these high glycemic index foods. So those are not good for diabetics. But if you have low glycemic index food, then the blood, sugar levels in the blood as such do not increase so drastically. So this is the idea. Then the next news item is Central Labs moved human first approach to test malaria vaccine. So this is something which is going to be in news in the future. So in November 2017, actually this is going to take place. There is a meet which will take place of Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR experts, and even of all the labs affiliated, experts from all the labs affiliated to Department of Biotechnology. So this experts meet which is going to take place will be a first of its kind ethics meeting. So why do they need an ethics meeting? They actually studying the feasibility of human challenge trials in India. So what are these human challenge trials? You should understand. So these are specifically even 2 vaccine candidates which are there in the country. These will be specifically discussed as such too in this meeting. So these are one causing falciparum malaria and another one is Vivax. So these 2 vaccine candidates are there. They have been developed at the New Delhi based International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. So these vaccines have been developed. Now, generally when vaccines are developed, the stages in their development is that the first, this vaccine is tested on animals. And after it has been successfully tested on animals and shown to be effective and safe in animals, it is then tested on humans. And a mild strain of this parasite is what the vaccine actually has. So they are given to healthy individuals. A mild strain. So it's an attenuated form of that parasite as such. So this parasite when it enters means vaccine, when you're taking a vaccine, it's actually an attenuated version of that parasite only against which you want resistance. So when in a mild form, if this is injected, what happens is your immune system will develop antibodies against it and will be able to fight that disease. So once you have been sensitized to that attenuated form of that parasite, then when actually the disease occurs, your antibodies can be there in place and can fight against the disease. So that's how your immune system is developed. So that's the genesis behind vaccines. So now what will happen is that in this case, what we are talking about, what is important, remember this is human challenge trials. So human challenge trials is what we are talking about. So this is important, right? This terminology is important till November 2017 when actually this test will also take place. So what are these, what will happen in this what I spoke of till now is generally how vaccines are tested. Now what happens is when vaccines are tested, you need a lot of investment. First you develop a molecule, a vaccine, and after that you will have to test it. First you have to test on animals, make a study, it's whole detailed clinical trials which take place. So these clinical trials put in a lot of investment and they do testing on animals, testing the efficacy, testing whether they are safe, do not have other side effects. After all this testing is done, then they are tested on humans. And again the same studies required about the efficacy, the safety. If somebody develops complications, and it should be possible to stop, backtrack and and remove the effects of those vaccines. So these steps are required, study is required. After it has completed its clinical trial and proved its efficacy and safety, only then the vaccine can be approved and be given license that they can have that medicine as such, which can be sold. So this is the generally the way it takes place. But now what is being stated here is that when such trials take place, there are many cases in which you can see, first of all, that there are many promising candidates for vaccines, and there are tons of investments which are put in them, and all this testing takes place, and finally they fail to live up to the expectations. So this is wasted money. You do so much, and then finally the result is that no, it is not safe, or if it's not having any efficiency. So then all your investment, all your money is down the drain. You achieve nothing. So that is one aspect which has been highlighted, that money gets wasted. Second aspect which is highlighted is that in many cases the dosage requirement in people and the dosage requirement in animals is different, and how the vaccine would respond in animals and humans, and even the disease, how it develops in humans and animals is different. So in those cases when animal trials are done and after that human trials are done, still there is a difference. So it is not the same result. So of course that is the reason why we are doing it on humans also. But an animal trial actually gives us a assurance that okay, it is not as harmful. A direct trial, what is being spoken of here in human challenge trials is directly skipping the animal testing, directly going for human testing. What? To save money. And another reason which has been given is, of course, there will be a difference. But why is it being done? Because the safety and security and life of a human is much more valuable as such. So that is the point because of which first animal trials are done and then human trials. So this human challenge trials which has been spoken of and which will be done, a meeting actually will be done. That's why it's called an ethics meeting by ICMR and Department of Biotechnology in November 2017 is to discuss this issue. So this is called, see, you can see not all strains are amenable to human first, or these you can see controlled human infection model approach. So all vaccines of course cannot go ahead with this too, but those which they are saying that it is possible to have human first trials, they can be undertaken. So this issue will be discussed. And of course for this what is required, and first and foremost what is important, is there will be healthy human volunteers who would be required. And of course the condition ideally is that they should be completely aware of the risks and they have given their informed consent. So they only should be recruited for the trials. And of course who will be healthy human volunteers who will recruit for such trials would be the poor. So those would be the people, and if there are negative consequences because of these trials, they will be the ones who would be suffering. And it is said that they should be made completely aware of the risks and they should give an informed consent. So this is being spoken of. Of course, another justification which is given is that it has been done in various countries. It has been done in UK, Netherlands, and also in Africa. Studies are being undertaken. A typhoid vaccine is being tested at Oxford University through these human challenge trials. So these are called the challenge trials. So this is how human trials work also. So you can see when a vaccine develops, then how it is being tested on humans, and the entire stage for clinical trials also, the exploratory stage, then preclinical trial stage, then after clinical development, then regulatory approval is given, then the manufacturing takes place, and quality control is also to be taken care of then. So this is the entire cycle for a safe, entire stages I should say, for a safe vaccine. And this what is shown here is the clinical trials with these challenge trials, human challenge trials, which we are speaking of presently, having taken place abroad. So the examples which are given, the world's first vaccine, which was developed by Edward Jenner in 1796, which led to the discovery of smallpox vaccine. This was done through human trials. This was the world's first vaccine. He tested it on the gardener's son. So this example is there. Then in US also, the US Army and University of Chicago had collaborated and they had tested malaria drugs on prisoners here. So this was also a human challenge trial which was undertaken. Then UK has also undertaken a clinical, challenge trial as such too. So these examples are also stated. Then the next news item is Nilgiri's pale tiger and aberrant genetic mutation. So this image of a tiger from Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve has become popular on social media, and this pale tiger as such, which is whitish, this is seen as an aberrant by the scientists here. So this is a unique tiger, of course, but then the scientists are saying that this may be just an aberrant genetic mutation. So genetic mutation which has resulted in this tiger being pale. So they say that this is not of any great conservation value per se. So this is there. Another thing you should know about is Bilquees Biosphere Reserves. This is one. This is the home to world's largest wild tiger population as such, and of course the largest tiger population in the country also. So this is there. Then the next news item is India still edgy about in-flight Wi-Fi. So this is regarding in-flight Wi-Fi, means internet facility in flight while you are flying in an aircraft. So actually in India this is not allowed, and the Civil Aviation Ministry Secretary is speaking against this. So it says that he is saying that India is the only other country apart from North Korea which does not allow Wi-Fi facility in the aircraft. To the extent that even when international airlines fly over Indian airspace, they have to switch off their Wi-Fi facilities, because security agencies in India do not allow this. And the Civil Aviation Secretary is hitting out on them, is talking on this, saying that the security agencies are being unidimensional. So this is the term being used, that they are thinking only from one perspective, security perspective. But that is of course very important. So this is there. Then another thing which the Civil Aviation Secretary is speaking of is regarding the regional connectivity scheme, the UDAN scheme, which has been initiated by the government to provide air services in these smaller airports also, which have been revived now. So these smaller airports, which are new airports which have been revived, they will also get security services. So here the Civil Aviation Secretary is saying that security here would be airport specific, means wherever there is security required and as much required will be provided. Because the thing is that he's saying, this is a statement made by Civil Aviation Secretary himself, he says that we cannot have over 100 security personnel for 30 to 40 passengers. Again, the financial aspect of it is highlighted by him again here. He says the cost of deploying one CISF constable at airport is 1 lakh per month. So this is a huge financial burden on the airport operators, because this has to be paid by airport operators. So this is being stated as such. That's why new airports security, whether it should be provided, how much, airport specific, that would be airport specific. So this is there, and he's saying that many airport operators are making losses in Airport Authority of India as such. Only 15 out of 115 airports operated by Airport Authority of India are making profits. So the government is making losses basically. So that, and he says the reason for these losses is security. So they have to pay a huge amount of money for security. So looking at cost cutting here by the government at the expense of security. So anyway, you should know more about CISF, Central Industrial Security Force. So these are the prominent central armed police forces in the country. Assam Rifles, Border Security Force, Central Industrial Security Force, Central Reserve Police Force, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, National Security Guard, and Sashastra Seema Bal. So we have seen many of them as we have been discussing current affairs for so long. And presently what has come up in news is CISF. ITBP was also recently news when we saw India-China standoff. So this is providing security at the border between India and China, and CISF is providing security to industrial establishments. Right? And there is a police force. So these are central armed police forces. So actually law and order is a state subject, and police as such are under the state governments. So this is there. Every state appoints and maintains a police force for prevention of crime, maintenance and enforcement of law and order in the state. And of course, apart from the thing that the IPS is an all India service. So the center selects and appoints them, but they work for the states. So that is there. Then next is Cyprus unity talks collapse. So this is international news. So first of all, you should know where is Cyprus. And Cyprus is an island nation in Mediterranean Sea, and this is divided. The island is divided between such as Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot. So we'll see that also. So presently what was going on were talks to reunify the divided island as such, and these talks were spearheaded by UN Secretary General as such. And now after 2 years of these talks, it has been announced that these talks have failed. The process has failed. So this was the best chance at reunification, and now it has failed since the split. As I said, Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot split, which took place in 1974. So this is the history of Cyprus as well shown here. You can see 1960 was when Cyprus gained independence from Britain, which was the colonial ruler here, but it still maintained its sovereign military bases on the Cyprus, the island, as it was strategically located. In 1963, there were intercommunal fights between the Greek and Turkish Cypriots. So there are both the religions and both the communities present here. Then in 1974, Athens-backed supporters of union with Greece tried to overthrow the president. So there were supporters who wanted Cyprus to merge with Greece. So the Greece is just across. It's in the Mediterranean Sea only here. So this was a step which was taken. The coup failed, and 8 days after that, Turkey invaded Cyprus and had taken over half of it. A little less than half of it, you can say. So the ceasefire was later declared, but then this is the status now. So the Turkey has launched this large-scale military operation, and it extended its control to capture 37% of the island. So now this is the status here, and till date we have this going on, that Cyprus is divided. Turkish Cypriots have begun building a bridge in Nicosia to ease movement of Turkish army, and this has further angered the Greek Cypriots as such, and this standoff continues. Here you can see this is the UN buffer zone which has also been developed, and this is the military base of UK, sovereign military base, in both regions. You can see this. These are the military bases, 2 military bases of UK. This is the UN buffer zone. This is the Turkish Cypriot, and this is the Greek Cypriot. Turkey lies just across here, and Greece on this side. So this is there. So this shows you the location of Cyprus in context also. This is Turkey. This is Greece. You can see this is Asia on the right here. Then you have Europe on the left here, top, and you have Turkey, which is actually in Eurasia. So it connects Europe and Asia, and this is the African continent below. So here lies Cyprus. There's another island here, Crete Island. This belongs to Greece only. So there are many small islands which all belong to Greece. Athens is the capital of Greece, and Cyprus is what we were talking of, divided into Greek and Turkish Cypriot. Then the next news item is US warplanes fly over disputed South China Sea. So this is actually a freedom of navigation exercise actually, which was done by US warplanes along with Japan's air self-defense forces. So this was undertaken presently for the first time at night, and this was to assert this freedom of navigation, because in South China Sea this is a disputed territory in which actually China claims almost all of South China Sea, and other countries which are there, the Asian countries, Association of South, because this is in Southeast Asia. So these countries like, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam, they have their claims here, and also Taiwan, another nation which is also called Chinese Taipei. They also have claim in South China Sea, but China claims the entire region. So that is why US has been conducting freedom of navigation exercises here, and China's response to this has been that this is what we adhere to too. So freedom of navigation and of flight over the East and South China Sea is indisputable, is what the Chinese foreign minister is saying, and we respect freedom of flight. We have always respected freedom of flight, is China's stand on this. So China has actually started building these reefs, the coral reefs which are there in this area. They are building these reefs and then developing them into artificial islands. So this reclamation is being done so that these islands are capable of hosting military planes also. So such steps have been taken by China in South China Sea. So that is further escalating the matter also. Plus, not just in South China Sea, but even in East China Sea, China and Japan have dispute along with Korea. So this is there. You should know about these disputes in both South China Sea and East China Sea. South China Sea, we have seen few days back to the 9-dash line. This is the Chinese claim, and the other countries which are making their claim. So this is shown here. We have already discussed all this, and this is the East China Sea dispute too. So East China is towards the east. This is towards the south of China. East of China is here on top. So here East China Sea, you have the Korean peninsula here, North Korea and South Korea and Japan. And of course Taiwan also, with which the dispute is there. So here you can see boundary claimed by Japan and boundary claimed by China. So Japan says this area belongs to us, and China says no, this. So this is a disputed area. Here lie the Senkaku Islands. So these are administered by Japan but claimed by both China and Taiwan. So this is a dispute between China and Japan. Then the next news item is cholera spreads as war, poverty batter Yemen. So this is regarding Yemen, which lies on the Arabian Peninsula, and Yemen is seeing a war. It has been under war since 2014. So it's the Sunni kingdom led by Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries which have launched an airstrike as such. And why this air campaign? Airstrike means a bombing through air on Yemen. Why? Because in 2014 the Houthi rebels, these are Shia rebels known as Houthis, they took over the capital of Yemen, Sana'a. So Sana'a region was taken over by them. So in response to this, supporting the president, the internationally recognized president of Yemen, Abed Rabbo Mansur Hadi, is known as Hadi. So this president is internationally recognized. To reinstate his control over this region, Saudi Kingdom, Saudi Arabia and the Arab allies, they came together and launched an air campaign bombing the rebels here, and also US joined them in 2015, in March 2015. So this is the Yemen war which is going on, and this conflict continues. They have not been able to take over the capital as such. To Shia rebels continue to have hold on this region, and since October 2016, what has happened is the government, the president here, you can see his hold is reducing. The government has stopped paying civil servants as such. So even this has resulted in strikes in this region. Plus the sanitation workers are also not taking up the garbage which is piling up here in this region, and this is resulting in the contamination of water in this region, and there is a cholera outbreak here. So apart from the war, the airstrikes and the fighting which have killed more than 8,000 people in Yemen and displaced at least 3 million, which the UN estimate is. Apart from this, there is this cholera outbreak which has taken place in Yemen because of this situation. So in Yemen, we are seeing that 14 million of 27 million population, they lack access to clean water, and they don't have enough food, and people are suffering because of cholera here, especially the malnourished children in this region. So Yemen is also a Muslim nation, but you see this is the Sunni Shia conflict which is going on, where the Sunni Saudi Arabia is supported by US, and we are seeing the Houthi rebels which are being fought against is resulting in this crisis in Yemen. So you can see cholera is actually caused due to bacterial infection, especially because of water contamination, water contaminated with feces, human excreta or any excreta. This results in cholera, and cholera is no longer a disease which causes deaths. But this is what we are seeing in Yemen presently, because with modern sanitation and water systems in place, this disease can be easily treated with even rehydration solutions, and even if it's severe infection, it can be treated with antibiotics. But in Yemen, we are seeing this crisis escalating, and the number of people who have died because of cholera, you can see at least 1,614 in Yemen have died because of cholera, and 2,69,000 people are infected with cholera. Yemen, you should know, is very close to Africa too. The other African neighbors of Yemen like Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia and Kenya are also suffering because of cholera infection, because of crisis and the wars, conflicts which are going on in the Horn of Africa region. So this is the status here in this region. You can see this is Yemen. This is on the Arabian Peninsula. This is Saudi Arabia, its neighbor. And here is the Horn of Africa, which lies close to it. So this is there. Then from geography perspective also, you should know this is the Red Sea here, and this is Gulf of Aden, and there's a strait. A strait is a narrow strip of water body which connects two larger water bodies or divides two land masses. So this strait is called Bab el-Mandab. So you should know about this also. Then this is regarding Yemen, the situation here, who controls what. So here you can see this region here is controlled by Houthi rebels. This is the Sana'a, the capital which we were speaking of. The maroon color here, you can see this is in control of the president, the internationally recognized president Hadi. So this is there, and the remaining region which you see here, this is sparsely populated area of Yemen. Such. So this is shown here. There are contested regions also as such which are shown. Then the next, this is regarding cholera again too. Cholera which affects the intestine. So it causes severe diarrhea, dehydration, and if it's not treated promptly, then it results in death. and that is what we are seeing in Yemen presently. So these bacteria, they multiply rapidly and they form the toxins from the bacteria. They penetrate the cells and the intestine system, and they prevent the intestine from absorbing water from the digested food. So this results in diarrhea, dehydration, and eventually, if not treated, it results in death. So even water, contaminated water or food contaminated with cholera bacteria is ingested, then cholera can form, and it generally results in epidemic also. So the feces of this diseased person is a source of contamination and further spread of the disease. So the general treatment for cholera is that a salt solution, for dehydration, what is taken, intravenous fluids as such can also be given, and antibiotics. So this is. Then the next news item is SEBI examining CA's lawyers board rules. So this is regarding SEBI's committee which has been appointed. This is Corporate Governance Committee which has been appointed by SEBI, and the chairman of this committee is Mr. Uday Kotak. And this committee has been set up to look into corporate governance, and specifically even on the matter of lawyers and CAs who are placed in corporate boards as such as independent directors. So what should be the framework which should be followed for such boards is such will be discussed and recommendations given by this committee. But then another point which is put forth is that members in this committee, Corporate Governance Committee of SEBI, also has leading corporate lawyers under it who are there on various corporate sector boards also. And also the president of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, he is also part of this committee. So this committee is going to give its recommendation. It's submitting its report within 4 months. So let's see. So here you can see the SEBI committee is looking into ensuring independence in spirit of independent directors and the active participation in the functioning of the committee. Then the next news item is the last one. Center eases pre-merger filing norms. So this is a notification which has come forth from Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and this notification says that when mergers and acquisitions are taking place in the country, there is no need to take a permission as such. There is a 30-day period that within the 30-day period within which there should be an application submitted to the Competition Commission of India. So this is an application for pre-merger clearance. So this has been exempted for every person or enterprise who is planning to have a merger or acquisition. So this notice within 30 days will not have to be given. Means you are free to give notice. You will still have to inform the Competition Commission of India that a merger is taking place, but there is no criteria of 30 days. The limit of 30 days has been removed. So that is what the notification is providing for. And this once this clearance has been given, it is valid for 5 years. So this notification means that parties can make a CCI, Competition Commission of India application at any time in course of acquisition. So this is there. Of course, the acquisition cannot effect or close before taking the CCI's approval. So CCI's approval is required, but 30-day time period has been done away with. So this is it. So these are the news items. Thank you.